the angst about the new DUPR algorithm is, how can it be that I can win and still go down?
You know, I see that a lot on Facebook of, hey, I just won a gold medal. I won every single match and my rating went down. First of all, that doesn't make sense. And second of all, that's not fair. Can you give an example of a 4-5 team and a 4-0 team? What are the expectations? So a 4-5 team should beat a 4-0 team around 11.
So hello and welcome to a new episode of The Breakthrough. It's been a while, Scott. A long while.
It has. The breakthrough, but who knew that you would break? You know, like that kind of got in the way of your progress.
Right. And we have a very special guest today. So we have Sarah Carpenter with us here from DUPR. You're actually the lead data scientist at DUPR.
That's right. That's correct. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Welcome to Colorado.
Let's go. I'm happy to be
in.
here.
Yeah.
Super lucky to be here in person. And this is even much more fun than just like looking at you guys on a screen. So.
We fit three of us in my tiny studio. I need to get a bigger studio at some point. But super glad you were able to come face to face. You've got family in Colorado Springs, apparently.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. We're going to get into, obviously, the new DUPR algorithm. And by the way, you look very well rested.
Yeah, so rested. Yeah, all I do is sleep.
But so yeah, for somebody that's dealing with, kind of an uproar right now. So it's an appropriate time. We've all been chatting about getting you on the show for a while now because that's kind of the premise of the show. How do we get our DUPRs up, right? One of the premises. So yeah, can you just give us a quick background? So we were chatting before the show. You're almost at your PhD. You almost have your PhD. What's your background in data science?
Yeah, so I'm really a math person. Grew up like wanting to teach math. Went to college to teach math, then went to University of North Carolina to get my PhD in math, planning to teach. I love teaching. I actually think it's fun. Even when I'm explaining algorithm stuff, I'm like, you know what? I'm sounding like a teacher right now. But I have a friend actually who works for the Dink. He still works for the Dink. And he said, hey, DUPR's hiring. You are a nerd. You love pickleball. How about you look into getting this job? And so I was like, sure, let me just do this part-time while I'm doing school. You know how that goes. I now am very full-time, probably over time. But I love it. So honestly, my background is math. Like if you can do math, then you can code. It's all pretty linear. And so kind of like through the job, like learned coding and it's kind of how I got here and it's been really fun.
How long have you been there now?
So I've been at DUPR for 2.5 years now.
So great. So let's back up here for a second, take kind of a 10,000-foot view before we jump into the details of, what's going on with the current algorithm. But give us kind of a history of how we got here today. Because when I started playing pickleball back in COVID era, it was kind of the same as it is today. So you could actually, it was point differential based rather than win-loss. And here we are again, but there seems to be a big uproar about it. And I think it's mostly from the people that hadn't experienced it before.
Probably.
And who are used to that win-loss sort of thing. So take us back to the beginning and just kind of a brief history of DUPR.
For sure. Yeah. So DUPR's been around since 2021. It is a startup still. We still kind of function in that way. We all work really hard, work a lot, and we've grown. We're about 50 people now. But yeah, so back in 2021, it started out like you said, where it was like point differential based, and you could win and go up, win and go down, lose and go up, lose and go down. The other kind of key part about it was that you could move when you weren't playing. So there's kind of this notion of connectivity that even if you weren't playing, if it learned something about like somebody else you had played, so on and so forth, it would update accordingly. Okay, so there's those kind of two big things, this like performance rating type thing and this movement without playing. So at the time, I think we recognized there's not enough transparency here. People are confused. People don't really enjoy not knowing what's going on. And so we kind of took a step back and we said, how can we prioritize transparency and user understanding right now? Especially at a time where like so many people are coming into the sport and just trying to like allow people to understand better was a big thing. The other thing that we did at that time was we took it from weekly updates to instantaneous updates. That was a pretty big deal. I think a lot of people right now really enjoy like being in a tournament and you go and play one match and you're like, how is this going to change my rating, right? And so we were able to make that change then. And so I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, you used to be like this and now you're going back. Why are you going backwards, right? So really at that time, we were taking a step forwards in some reasons, in some ways, like that transparency and experience of like really being able to understand what was going on. And then along the way, we've kind of like added in that accuracy back. Okay, so like 6 months after we made that change, we made it a lot smarter again, making it care about things like recency and like decay and like match count and the score even. Originally, it wasn't even counting the score. So we made it a lot smarter, and then go a year and a half to today. Now we're adding that point differential back in. So, my job at DUPR, and I have a team, our job is to make the rating as accurate as we can. And so we try things, every week or every day. Like, here's a new idea. Let's try it, right? And I'll get into it in a little bit of like, what do I mean by making it more accurate? How do we actually measure that? But at the end of the day, we're going to keep trying things based on new ideas, and we're going to try to do the most accurate thing possible.
Yeah, and this is just a free flow conversation, and I think before we get too much further, I know a little bit, but I'm sure our viewers are curious as well. Tell us, if you could, a little bit about yourself as a pickleball player.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I actually started playing, I think in like 2019. I started playing with my dad. I think pretty similar to like a lot of people in their 20s and 30s. Their parents were like, hey, you should come play. So I started with him, and he was better than me. He is not better than me anymore. I like to make sure that he knows that. But no, it's fun to get to play with family and friends. And so I actually played during grad school, I played for the University of North Carolina. We won the first national championship, which was really fun. Competed in a couple other of those. I'm a tournament player. I play a tournament probably once a month or whatever. I think my reliability score right now is like 99%. So I'm like trying to get that back up to 100, but I play a lot. So.
And what's your DUPR rating?
My DUPR is right above 5.
Okay. So. Legit.
Yeah. What about you?
I flirted with 6.0, but I've slipped back down to about 5.8.
Okay. Well,
which I happen to think is pretty accurate.
Okay.
But.
Yeah. And I'm down there at 4.2.
Perfect. All right. We have
That's what the show's about.
Exactly. Well, it's also still like above average, well above average.
Is it?
So
Okay.
yeah.
What is average, by the way?
Like 3.5-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Out of what sample size?
Like how many people do we have total?
Yeah.
It's like right around 1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty crazy. Have you seen the international memberships go up?
Absolutely.
Pretty quickly?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know what it used to be, but right now we're getting about 50% of our new users every week are international. Wow. So it is much more than it used to be, which is pretty exciting to see.
I don't want to spiral out into a million different directions, but how does that work internationally in terms of the DUPR algorithm? Because it's harder for people to cross the ocean and play each other to kind of equalize it and correct
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's even a little bit more on our future roadmap, right? Like we have all these things that we consider like algorithm related, but even like data quality related. I think like we see things around like duplicate accounts, like that's something we want to look into, right? So this like notion of like people living in different places and like lacking connectivity, that's something on our future roadmap. I think right now it's like if we have any of that data in the past, it's going to trickle forward, but it's absolutely something we want to be able to prioritize in the future of like really, really leaning on those bridges when we do get them to be able to like spread that data more. So It's a great question.
Okay, great. So let's jump into kind of the current algorithm. The current outpour, I think outpouring and kind of crisis mode that a lot of people are perceiving with their DUPRs is it changed. And I think people are the sport has progressed to the point where now it matters much more than it did when I joined. I think I joined DUPR right when it opened, and we were playing some rec games and with like 8 people back and forth and kind of established our DUPR. And now it's so much of a bigger thing. So, there are people who came into the sport, it matters more now to them and they're attached to their DUPR scores, obviously.
Absolutely.
So tell us, first of all, how is it different from the original point differential? You mentioned that your point back then, your DUPR could fluctuate without you actually playing based on the people in your history of play going up or down, which I don't think anybody liked that back then. You all got rid of that. That's not present now, but how similar is the current algorithm to the one before last?
Yeah, I think it is very similar in the way of like how you are judged. Right. So since then, we've obviously had 2 more years to collect tons of data. Right. We have like so many partnerships that have given us so much data, which is amazing. So we're at like 8 million matches right now. Wow. So what we do is, we take those 8 million matches and we model, right? We model like here's what's happening in these matches and even different types of matches, rally scoring matches, regular traditional scoring matches. Like we might even look at gender doubles, mixed doubles, like how are those different? And then we model that expected score. So the formula has actually evolved in the last 2 years. It's not the exact score. It's not the exact expected score formula that we used then, due to all of our new data, due to further studying. But it's still pretty similar in the way of like, here's your rating, here's the other team's rating, here's the difference, and now we're going to say we expect this to happen. So it's pretty similar, other than the fact that now we are an instantaneous formula. There's a little bit of a difference between right now. Every match comes in with a rating, and you spit out a rating. Right before, it was all matches go in, and then everybody's rating comes out. So it's like a little bit of a different like math problem in regards to like inputs and outputs. Right now we're going more on like a match by match, and it used to be more of like here's the overall situation. Take all the ratings in and spit out, or all the matches in and spit out a rating for everyone.
All right. So the crux of the issue, I think, with the angst about the new DUPR algorithm is, how can it be that I can win and still go down, or how can it be that the people I beat lost and their DUPR goes up?
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? What's the reasoning why that is in place?
Yeah. Well, so I'm obviously curious to ask what you guys feel about that as players, but I can go first if you want me to.
Let me ask a setup question.
Okay.
A little bit and I think our viewers, this will help kind of funnel the conversation. I'll ask it in two parts because I know you can handle it. Okay. What's the purpose of DUPR?
Yeah.
What's the primary reason for its existence? And can you speak to the difference between a rating, a ranking, and a gold medal?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Number one, what is the purpose of DUPR? Okay. So our goal is to give every player in pickleball as accurate of a rating as we can that is representative of their current skill level based on their match results. Okay, so that's our goal. You heard me say in there as accurate as possible, right? Within reason, right? We could probably be like super crazy and make crazy things happen and perhaps be somewhat more like predictively accurate, but within reason, we're trying to give everyone as accurate as a rating as we can. So that's our purpose. What's the difference between a rating and a ranking and a gold medal? Okay, all are great, right? And they all do come together in some ways, okay? So a rating is a description of your abilities based on your results, okay? And when I say results, sometimes I think results, what I've learned through all of this is like there's so many words that mean a lot of very similar things, but they're not all exactly the same. For example, results, performance, outcome. I think sometimes we think of those as like binary, but sometimes not, okay? So like your performance, we are now looking at it from a non-binary perspective, right? We're looking at it, how many points, what percentage of the points did you score? And so by looking at it that way, when I give you a rating, I'm just truly comparing you to everyone else in this whole huge ecosystem of 1 million players and 8 million match results, right? And it is a description of your performance, okay? A ranking typically means that there is some amount of connectivity involved. Kind of going back to what we just talked about between like different continents, we lack that connectivity. Within a club, right, like you run a club, or even within like the pro community, those players are pretty connected. They're playing within a league that has everyone like basically playing the same people. When that's the case, you can make a ranking because people are all competing in the same place and you can kind of come up, it's kind of like a ladder, right? With a rating, you can create a ranking, and we do, right? We're proud of our rankings. I actually think we're very good at ranking professional players because they are kind of all like in one league where they're all playing each other. But the rating has a lot more to it than a ranking, right? Ben Johns is number 1, and his DUPR rating is around 7.3. Well, number 2, I believe, is J.W. Johnson, around like 7.1. And then after that, it's probably like 705 and then 704, right? There's a big difference that we're not able to catch with a ranking that we are with a rating. I think also with rankings, it does have this notion that when you win, you go up, and when you lose, you go down. And that's great for a lot of things. Same thing for a gold medal. So I'm kind of going back now to answering both questions here. I think with the way that our algorithm was working before this, when you won, your DUPR rating went up, and when you lost, your DUPR rating went down. And I think in a lot of people's minds, it turned into a reward and punishment system. So when somebody won their match, they're like, let's go. I want to see what my DUPR is. Because I won this match, I'm obviously a better player now, right? Whereas I think we all know that that's not the case. Just because you win a match does not actually mean that you proved that you were a better player, just in that one match, right? And I'm going to talk about that a lot. Is like, I think with all of this, we're doing like huge magnifying glasses in on one match, right? And none of us are one match. None of us are one tournament. We're all like the full collection of our matches. But we can get to that in a little bit.
Mm. Part of why I ask that is that, there are comments in response to the update of, my last tournament, I went undefeated. I went all the way. I won the gold medal, and my DUPR went down. So there's clearly a difference between, achieving a gold medal, going undefeated. There's a lot of data there we don't know, about how it is that they got there.
100%.
And DUPR probably doesn't and shouldn't care about the gold medal. That's not the purpose of the rating, right?
100%. Yeah. Okay. So, I've been very active on social media. John was
as
saying,
DUPR?
As DUPR, as Sarah,
yourself, yeah.
The whole team's been on. Tito, our CEO's been on, and I think we're just trying to educate, as many people as we can. I think a lot of people, once we end up talking to them, then people are like, oh, I understand. I might not like it, but I do understand, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to do. So, I see that a lot on Facebook of, hey, I just won a gold medal. I won every single match, or I went 6-1. And my rating went down. First of all, that doesn't make sense. And second of all, that's not fair. Okay? So, like you said, we're missing some context, right? And I can tell you the exact piece of context that we're missing. What was the level that you were playing at? And to be honest, we are still working on getting tournaments and clubs to be organized by DUPR ratings, because right now, if the tournament director doesn't make you sign up for your level, then you might think you're signing up for a 3-5 tournament. But if the director allows in people that are not 3-5, like you might not be playing people that are 3-5. So like, let's say this person won their 3-5 tournament, but all the people were actually 3-0s. So even though they won, they probably had a lot of close matches with those 3-0 players, and thus they proved to the algorithm that they are closer to a 3-0 than what we knew before.
But what do you say? Is it true that no other sports have a similar method where if you win a match, your rating can go down?
Yeah.
And vice versa.
So no. So it's not true, right? But also, like, I've been doing a lot of research on this, and not everyone has. And like, honestly, for me, I play pickleball, and honestly, I play way too much pickleball. I wish I had other hobbies, and that's not true. Like, but I probably should have other hobbies where I know more about all these things. I think a lot of people are like that, right? Like, a lot of these people, pickleball is their hobby. That is what they eat, sleep, breathe, right? And so, they don't know much about tennis rating systems, and they don't know much about squash and tennis and padel and all these things. Why would they, right? Unless they have like an interest in that, right? So I've been looking into these things, and so I actually don't have a tennis background. A lot of people at DUPR do, so there's a lot of people who understand tennis very well. I think we all know, like in pickleball, like there's some great things to learn from tennis, and there's some other things that we should be different in, right? But math is math, right? And we can look at these things of like, here's what's working from an accuracy standpoint. Here's how pickleball is different from tennis in the way that it's played. Here's how pickleball is different from these other racket sports or other sports in general. But at the end of the day, we're going to look at the math and see what the math is saying. So tennis is a good example. Both UTR and then the world tennis number are the same way, where you can win and go down or lose and go up based on your performance. I believe both badminton and squash, so like universal badminton rating, universal squash rating, and then padel also. So I think it's like world. It's in my notes somewhere.
I'm similar to you. I'm hyper-focused on pickleball.
Yeah, world padel rating. Yeah, so it's like the new of like the U.S. padel. I've played padel once. Seems really fun. But yeah, most of these sports, honestly, I haven't played, but I have looked into kind of how they do their algorithms, and they're very similar. So,
and to get back to your question you asked Scott and I, so to me, the new algorithm, I don't mind it. Because I cut my teeth in pickleball using a similar algorithm. I just kind of always assumed. And I think if most people think about it, they would be like, it'd be easier to accept that if they and their partner, let's say they're 4-0s, were playing Ben and Annalee and they lost 9-11, their DUPR should go up,
Yeah.
and banana Lee should go down, right?
Yeah.
But it's harder to empathize the other direction because nobody wants to win a match and have their DUPR go down. So that's kind of my answer. I don't mind it. I didn't mind the other one either. I never really tried to kind of game the system. I probably should be more aware of how best to if the goal is your DUPR increasing, how best to make that happen. I've never really strategized too much about that. But Scott, how do you feel about the new algo?
I've evolved. I've missed the original algo lately. At first, I had a similar response that people are having now. Is the purpose of pickleball is not to score points; it's to win games and to win matches, and hence my question earlier about gold medals. Like, well, yeah, if you're focused on winning gold medals in tournaments, then just win the game 11-9 in the third, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And I think the first time we got to know each other a little bit is, a split age pro in U.S. Open. Ryler and I took a game off of Dylan Frazier and Althoff Merchant, and my DUPR didn't go up, and it should have. But, we were in that in-between phase, there where we definitely outperformed prediction. But, it was the wrong time to do that.
For sure.
A little bit. So I've just gotten more comfortable with DUPR not being, not defining me at all, even though I'm a professional pickleball player and coach, and it's kind of important. Like, it's got to be somewhat representative of my on-court skills. But it's really just an indicator of how I'm playing these days, and it doesn't really go way up or down.
Yeah.
I've also got 400 and some odd matches in the system, and my reliability score is as high as it can get.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really move a whole lot. So count me generally in favor of the new update.
Well, I love what you said, and I had that in my notes to say at some point. I know somebody working at DUPR, you think that I want you to be obsessed with your DUPR and that it should define you, and I do not think that at all. I think it is very unhealthy to have that, right? I think we all have either been in that situation at different points or seen people in that position, and it's you want to shake someone and be like, hey, you're good, this isn't everything. It's just an indicator of your skill. And it's a fun way to measure. It's a good way to measure how things are going. And it's really, again, I was talking about what our goals are. Our goals are to assign that rating, but then for what? So then you understand where you fit in the pickleball ecosystem and can play at the right place, right? Everyone has different goals. A lot of people have goals to win, but honestly, not everyone. A lot of people have goals to have fun and to socialize and to exercise. And therefore, we want to take in the results and just give you a rating appropriately. I'm not trying to change your goals by changing the algorithm, right? You should go out and play how you would play, right? Go compete. And it's gonna follow you, right? I do think, I was talking about this earlier, I think that one of the reasons that there's pushback is because it requires actually more trust in DUPR, to be honest. Because now you have to trust that formula that we're telling you to over or underperform is correct, right? And that's with everything, right? We have to trust people. We have to trust experts in different fields to create these things, and we're going to adapt if we see reasons to adapt. But like I said before, it's all fit on this 8 million matches of data that we have up until this point. But yeah, I do love what you said. It's a number. Actually, I was thinking it's kind of similar to a GPA or a credit score or something like that, where you want it to be good. You want it to be as good as possible, and you kind of want to intentionally work on it. But also, it's just a description of who you are. At the end of the day, the teacher is going to assign the grade. And whoever does credit scores is going to assign your credit score, right? And you can do what you can. But I think, I would guess that as a coach that you would think this too. Work on your game, right? Work on your game. Study for the exam in order to get knowledge. And the descriptor, the rating itself, will follow, Mm-hmm. So easier to say than do. I get it.
Right. So I think a lot of people, beyond just kind of the black and white issue of, man, I won a match and my DUPR went down, that's wrong. They also see the subtleties and the gray area in there. And I think there's been some arguments and there's been some examples that people have shown online of, okay, we won 11-2 against the team that was half a point below us in DUPR, and my DUPR still went down.
Yeah.
It may have been out to the third decimal point, but regardless, how often is that changing? How often are you manipulating adjusting the algorithm for that differential? And B, can you give us an insight into, okay, if let's say a 4.5 team on average, or a combined DUPR, both of them 4.5, playing two 4.0s, what would that differential look like? What would the 4.5s need to win by for their to break even?
That's a good question. So I've seen the 11-2s also, right? And I think, again, like I do appreciate there are some people on the internet who, try to come with reason and say, hey, we're missing a little bit of context here. What were the ratings of everyone involved? And then we see screenshots and we see, okay, this team was close to a full point favorite, okay, 0.9 full point favorite, okay? And just like you said, another thing you said with the third decimal place, okay, that's a tricky one. The third decimal place is really tough because the whole reason we put it in there is so that players can just track what's happening, right? Every incremental movement is movement. But I think it draws a lot of attention there. And so I think on a lot of those like 11-2s where you went down, I mean, seriously, it was like 0.003 are some of the examples that I was seeing. I would call that not moving. However, I understand because it does have a minus sign and it is red. So I understand that you are moving just a little bit. But I definitely do encourage people to take a step back and recognize we're trying to pin people's level, right? Like not even the last two decimal places. Like 3.1 is the same as 3.187 is the same as 3.085, right? Like we're trying to get you around the right place because that's how you can know where you are in the pickleball space and compete accordingly. So full transparency, I have already looked into this of like, okay, should we ever really expect somebody to win by more than 11-2? Because there's been lots of arguments of, okay, what if I'm up like 10-0 and then the person gets two net cords or then something happens, right? Or even, I've even also seen this with like, okay, what if I'm up 10-4 and then they get two net cords or something? So now we're at 10-6, so on and so forth. Whenever we're not so close to the bottom of the expected score, like so close to 0, I don't think it's too legitimate because you have things on either side. Sometimes you're going to get those for you. Sometimes you're going to get those against you. Sometimes your partner is going to be targeted. Sometimes you're going to be targeted. Everything goes both ways. Maybe not for maybe certain people are very unlucky, but math can't look at that. You know what I mean? We just have to like believe that like these things tend to even out because they do. Because they do. Yeah. Exactly. They do. But when it's at the bottom like that and like expecting somebody to win by more than 11-2, that is a little tougher, right? But I've already looked into this. So one thing that we do is I told you that every match right now is like one at a time. But we can like put this in kind of a simulator and just say, okay, let's run every match, but let's try it with some new variation. Like I could say, okay, let's just make every match on Wednesday count 5 times more. We would never do that, and that would not be accuracy improving, but we could do that, right? And we could run it through the simulator and just see what happens, okay? That is what we do, and I can take a suggestion that I see on Facebook and just do it really quick, and we run it through. And then we say, okay, how does this accuracy compare to our current production accuracy? Is it better? Oh, this is something we should really consider. Is it worse than, okay, not yet, but like, is there another way that we could look into this? So I've actually looked into this notion of like knocking players for winning 11-2. Again, it's 0.003 or something very, very small. And so far, it is not accuracy improving to do that. We are actually gaining information about those players that they are not as good as we thought that they were. So it's a tough pill to swallow, right? Like it is. Nobody likes to see their rating go down. I'm like right at 5. I'm like 507. I'm going to work really hard to not see it go, you know? Like I don't want to see it go below 5. I get it, right? Nobody likes to see their rating drop, but we do. Everyone knows of people who are inflated, right? And that's one thing that I'll talk about is that's really why we made this change, is because some people are rated correctly, but there are also people who we know were too high or too low because of the past algorithm.
What do you say to the people who are like, all right, well, I kind of see the point of if a lower rated team loses, but they don't lose big, so they close the gap and lose by 2 points to a really, team that's much better than them, DUPR-wise. Their DUPR should go up, but the losers shouldn't go down. So why wouldn't that be possible for DUPR?
The winning team that didn't win by enough.
Exactly.
shouldn't go down.
So the
Yes.
Or you
losers can-
penalized for winning,
Yes.
but not by enough.
Right.
Yes.
That's the question that's out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So a lot of people say, hey, give reward, which I actually am being very intentional now about not using the word reward and punishment
I agree.
because we are just trying to measure.
Calling balls and strikes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are measuring. So we could just what people have suggested is, okay, let's just leave the winner at no movement and let's move the people up because they proved that they were better. So first of all, we can't do that because we have our average. We talked about our average being 3.5-ish, right? It moves over time with whatever's happening in the pickleball space. But if we did this, then what would happen is that 3.5 over time would just up. Right. So like chess, for example, is like is zero sum. The ELO system is zero sum. One team goes exactly up the way that the other team comes down. That maintains that healthy distribution. DUPR is similar to that. I don't know, I can get nerdy for a second, but there's ELO, which is the chess, and then there's GLICO, which is ELO, but a little bit smarter. That cares about recency and decay and how much uncertainty there is in a rating. DUPR is that, so it's kind of a GLICO system. And so, we might learn more about one team rather than the other. So it's not perfectly zero sum, but it's zero sum enough. And so we have to maintain that, or else over time this mean will shift. And then what does it even mean to be a 3.5 or a 4.5?
So it would just inflate the
Exactly.
losers' scores eventually.
Yeah,
You have to
everyone
have
scores,
a
right?
balance.
And it ends
That's
up
true.
going around. So we inflate the loser right now. The other thing that's kind of interesting to think about is I've had people say, okay, I am rated this. Let's say I'm a 4 and this person's a 3.5, and I know that let's say I as the 4.0 think that they're underrated. Maybe they should just go up and I should not go down because that's what they just proved. The system has to react by moving people closer together every time. And again, that's one of those things that evens out. We don't have eyes. All we have is the data. All we know is that we need to move closer together. And then in the next match, maybe we move you back up based on you showed that you should be further apart from somebody else.
My thoughts on that are, it goes back to the ratings, rankings, and gold medal question that I had before. And as a facility owner, we put on leagues and competitive events and things like that. And I think the emotion that goes along with that question, kind of goes to, I could see in a ladder league over a few months that the winners don't get penalized, if we're going to use that word, and the losers can move up and get closer in a competitive setting, closer to a ranking and a ladder, and this team can see themselves up closer to the top. But I think from the purpose of what we're trying to do of rating these teams, that the winning team, they probably didn't move down much, but they showed on that day, one data point that they were closer to this team. And the next day they beat them 11-1, 11-1, and back they go. So I think delineating between, is this a competitive environment, a ladder league, something like that? Well, let's not penalize winners.
Absolutely, yeah.
But when we're calling balls and strikes, I think removing the words reward and penalty is a good start.
And let's also talk about there is still tons of value in winning. If you win your ladder league or you win your tournament, that's still my goal as a player. Whenever I go out on the court is to win the match, right? Why would I want my DUPR rating to go up? Well, that's because I think I've gotten better, right? Not because I've necessarily won a tournament. So I do think winning is still very valuable. I also realized that John asked me kind of a detailed question that I didn't answer yet, which is, can you give an example of a 4-5 team and a 4-0 team? What are the expectations there? Because I do think there's a lot of fear around this expectation formula. And a lot of people thinking that it should be a little bit more favorable to the favorite, okay? So a 4-5 team should beat a 4-0 team around 11-5 or 11-5.5, actually. So the formula itself is smooth, meaning that we take in the ratings and the difference, and it spits out actually a percentage, okay? So it doesn't spit out something like 11-5, and then it's 11-5, 11-6, right? It's going to give a percentage based on those ratings. So that's when somebody moves down 0.003, they actually probably got very, very close to that expected score. Sometimes they're going to be 0.003 below. Sometimes they're going to be 0.003 above. Okay, so those little things do even out. But to me, like, think about in pickleball, a 0.5 difference is a whole level. That's a whole level of competing. A 4-0 and a 3-5, that is two different types of players. Right. And if you can beat them 11-5 or better, then your rating's going to go up. You've proved that you are better. So I wrote it. I think it's fair. But I also think as a player that seems pretty fair to me. I think if I had a 4-5 player and I had a 5-0 teammate and they had I suck at singles, so I'm not even going to like act like I'm playing singles. But if I had that in doubles, I personally feel comfortable that on sometimes I can do 11-5. Sometimes they might get closer, but I actually believe I can also win by more than 11-5 occasionally. So,
no, I appreciate the honest response there. I think that to me sounds really reasonable. You know, a whole half a point of difference is pretty substantial, and it seems like it should be around half the points you can earn during the game. You know what I mean? So that over-under, I do think there was the impression that you have to almost pickle somebody who's half a point below you, for your score not to go down.
If I could dive a little deeper, and, we're totally dorking out here because I think that was the idea.
Absolutely.
Sarah, you mentioned, winning is important. Winning is good. You want to win. I think a mark of a stronger team, a higher rated team, is that they find a way to win. Yeah. They likely have better skills. So let's say the prediction, was 11-7, 11-7, and it's 9-9 in the third. The better team, will find a way to win. They handle the pressure better. They deal with the wind better, whatever it might be. So from a rating system standpoint or algorithm standpoint, do you credit the W more than the L, and not just did they cover the predicted score or not cover the predicted score? Do they get credit for the win?
It's a good question. So as of now, no.
Right.
So it's really not been statistically proven in like sports that like in close matches, like when winners are going to win. So again, if this is something that we see, like, and what I would do here is I would say, okay, let me just add a little bit of something, right? A little bit of impact, positive number to the winner. And let me just see if that increases the rating accuracy. So what I have done already is I've looked at, okay, I'm going to call it against the grain movement. Okay. So let's say that when you win and go up, that's with the grain. And when you lose and go down, that's with the grain. But when you win and go down, lose and go up, that's against the grain. So what I've tried is I say, okay, well, what if we another thing people have said is, I understand the winners going down, just not as much. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. Mm-hmm. So it's really, in theory, kind of similar to what you're saying here. It's like, yeah, we're gonna give you a little bit of a boost because it's kind of that against the grain. That still is not as accurate. So we kind of have to make those decisions. It's really a balance between this whole notion of player experience and accuracy. And we're always going to lean into accuracy, but we are considering this player experience. So actually we did a survey like a year or two ago where we asked people verbatim, do you like it how it is right now, how it was last year where you win and you go up? Or do you want the ability to go up with a win and down with a loss? I actually remember when they were writing the survey, I was like, you need to make sure to tell people that they are going to go down when they win. You can't just tell them that they're going to go up when they lose. And over 50% of people wanted that. So there are people that want this. So that's where it gets tough of like, some people don't want it. Some people do. I think it's a very natural debate. And like to see that people would want it one of each of the ways is not surprising to me. So first of all, we're going to go with what's most accurate, but it's not even like we're just fully going against the grain and just making everyone mad just because we want to make everyone mad. I promise we don't want to do that, right? We're a company, right? Like we're trying to provide a product to people. But one thing that I like to talk about from the player experience side is you use the word already, so I'm going to say it too, emotion. There's an emotional piece of experience of you play the match and then you look at your DUPR and you see what happens. There's also an experience piece of playing the match. And we are really prioritizing that because the more accurate the ratings are, the better experience your time on court is going to be in creating these like fair and equitable matches. So that was very long-winded of like, no, right now we're not, but that's the exact type of thing that we'll continue to like tinker with and see.
I will say that I'm so glad you answered the question about all right, hypothetically 2-4-5s play 2-4-0s. What's the over/under? Because everybody wanted to know that. I wish I didn't know that because now I'm being focused on it. And
Yeah.
if I'm playing,
Yeah.
I'm thinking in my head, okay, at this point, I can't let them get over 5. That kind of destroys some of the fun, right?
Yeah.
And I
That's
kind of
fair.
I do like the new algorithm in the sense that it does kind of take away, it does kind of force you to focus on each point, which is, a goal of mine, not to overthink things and take things point by point. So I think that might be helpful to help me achieve that mindset.
Well, going on that really quickly, I think that everyone's different with the way that they think. Like my best friend is like mental performance. She's in school right now getting her PhD, but eventually we'll do like mental performance coaching. So I have a free one of those, which is nice. But everyone's different in the way that they approach thinking about this and what's healthy for them. I think for a lot of people, it's actually probably not healthy to know that expected score and to just go out and play and trust that the process is going to happen. There are other people who just want to compete, right? And just go out and know that number and like try to beat that number. So with this update, and we are working on releasing a tool where you can find that out if you want to. We're not going to force you, right? We're going to provide it, and then you can do whatever you want with it, right? People can actually treat it. It now becomes a little bit more like golf handicap. So in golf handicap, like the purpose of it is that everyone has a handicap so that it can be equalized whenever they start. And now they're all kind of playing to win, right? Now, let's say the expected score is 11.5. Now both teams are playing to get over under that 11.5. So there is a fun piece there if that's how your brain works. Yeah. But not everyone's like that. Some people see that and they feel pressure and then they don't like that. But that's kind of up to every player, like how they're going to approach things. But I think that's my main suggestion as the data scientist and not at all a mental performance coach is just keep playing your game and don't change anything based on this. Is basically my thought.
I hadn't thought about it before, but I mean, we prescribe and execute the 7-11 game. I'm sure you've played it as well. And the team that starts at the non-volley zone or the player that starts at the non-volley zone is expected to win. So they need to get to 11. And the other team only needs to get to 7 because they start off at a disadvantage. So, I mean, we're already doing that.
It's exactly that. I mean, I've even played full games where we say, all right, let's start it at 8-0 or 9-0, and let's see if we can win. It's really similar to that. I think those matches are typically played a little bit more in fun.
Yeah.
And then these matches, you might put that pressure on you. I think that's the other thing with this is change is scary. Like nobody's denying that change is scary. And I think before you get to see it in action, and even before you get to see it over a couple months, not just one match or one tournament, it's gonna feel a little bit scary. So that's been one request that I've had to people. I finally broke my silence on Facebook at the end of last week and just made a little post and just said, I'm requesting a little bit of patience just to see how things go. See if that person that you think is overrated starts to come back down a little bit, or see if that person who you do think is underrated starts to come up a little bit. And if you're accurately rated, this change doesn't actually do very much to you, right? Think about the person who's winning and losing, right? In the old algorithm, they were fine. They would move up when they won, they'd move down when they lost. But for some people, they were not playing at the right level. They win, they keep going up, they get inflated, or vice versa. So I think most people know of some players like that, and those people are going to be much more correct with this.
Yeah, I mean, I do see some issues with the older algorithm in terms of inflation in particular. Let's say that a group was isolated, a bunch of people playing each other round robin, and they don't travel outside of that group very often. The winners there's always that one person who wins more than the other people, a little higher skill level. But theoretically, if they only played each other, that person's level would keep going up and up and up and up, and they'd be incredibly deflated. And I guess the same on the bottom end of it.
Exactly.
Too, yeah.
Yep.
So the person who typically loses, even if they're half a point under, they might go a full point under or something like that. So,
and to go deeper into that a little bit, you mentioned fun and rec, and maybe the 7-11 style is more for fun and rec. And I know I had issue when DUPR first came out that as a tournament player, I was able to put a ton of data in, or I was able to have the tournament director submit our results, and soon enough my DUPR rating would go up, down, or stay the same. But I was dubious about rec games being submitted without some sort of sanctioning body or official accreditation of that. So can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, do you see weirdness, anomalies from just for people that are supposed to approve that they're going to submit to DUPR? Like, what goes on there?
Yeah, no, it's a good take. I think it's a popular take and it's a good take. So I'll talk about it first from the social perspective, and then I'm actually going to bring it back to the accuracy. Because again, if something were really hurting our accuracy, it would not be there. So from a social perspective, I think that's one thing that's really cool about DUPR, but also pickleball, is like I've said before, it can be what you want it to be. It can be social, it can be competitive, it can be exercise, it can be a lot of things. And it's a hard problem, right? But we want to try to fit this to as many people as possible. So I think the loudest people are always going to be the tournament players, right? Because this is going to be more of like identity to them, right? But what's cool is like they can choose what they let count towards their DUPR, right? I actually, up until this point, have been tournament only. Okay, so we actually have this graph that like we look at like how many people do we have in tournament plus club and tournament only and like rec only, right? So we look at these things, and I've been tournament only up until this point. I'm starting my first league on Thursday, so we'll see how that goes. But there are also people who want to have those rec games or who only have those rec games. I think one thing to think about is like, especially in these like new countries, not everyone has the ability yet to like get into a club or play a tournament or something like that. So we're kind of looking out for things like that. But what I've done is I have taken all the rec matches out. It's not that hard to do. And then I run my little simulation. And then we see, okay, let's compare the accuracy of our full ecosystem with and without. What I've also done is compared the non-rec matches when the rec matches are included versus when they're not. And we gain accuracy on the non-rec matches because the rec matches are in there. So what that says is that the amount of data that we gain from having those in there improves the accuracy more than any potential silly matters going on, okay? And there are some of those, right? There are people who cheat. There are people who cheat in any system. And we look for that, and we have people dedicated to looking out for that. I've always been pretty intentional in my two and a half years at DUPR of like trying to make the experience as good as possible for our honest users. But we do still have to spend time on our dishonest users because our honest users care about that, right? It's like a fairness thing. A lot of DUPR is honestly like solving for fairness, to be honest. Like creating like level-based play is like a pretty big fairness thing. So we do look at that and make sure that like try to delete any matches as quickly as we can if we identify. We actually tell people like if you see this, send it to support. Like we want to know. We do monitor, but we love to have like police everywhere, so they can monitor and send it to us.
So another big question. There have been some very vocal proponents. I think Dane Gingrich is probably the most vocal of this, and saying that the DUPR algorithm will never be accurate until you can account for gender and age in this. So why not use that data of gender and age to improve the accuracy of it? And I know that it's supposed to be it is a universal rating system, so that would go away from that. But what do you say to people like Dane?
Yeah, no, it would. And it's a good question, right? And like we have so many different types of people in the sport, and I do think that's what makes it so beautiful. But yeah, do we have perhaps some information based on somebody's age and gender about how maybe a typical person of that age and gender might be able to perform athletically? Yes. But pickleball is not just athleticism, right? It is a lot of things. It is strategy. It is decision-making. It is consistency. And so, first of all, like you said, if we were to go away from that, we wouldn't be this universal. Like all these universal ratings are the same. Universal tennis, squash, badminton, all of those are going to be the same. Table tennis actually is different from us in the win and go up, but they are also universal. So that's one thing that I like to think about is like I played last week at a tournament where I was the only girl. And do I believe that there are guys who can be better than me because they could be more athletic or faster, more powerful? Yes, right? But it doesn't mean that we can't compete, right? Like I could perhaps have like better control or something like that, right? Like I had an example the other day where like truly a grandparent could play with their teenager. If the teenager was like not very experienced, they're going to be more athletic, but the grandparent's going to have more experience. Like I think we have all seen that at the park. Like we have all seen that. So I think because we can put everything on a scale, it's worth it. And within pickleball, people do play. People do like cross those age and gender barriers. So 20% of our matches are non-traditional. So that means they do not fall into the gender doubles or mixed doubles category. So it could be like 3 guys and a girl, or even like 2 guys versus 2 girls. So we have a lot of data. I think actually people probably don't think that we have that. I mean, we can kind of use that as like training data. You know, that's how we can kind of see how things fit together. So one reason is that is how things are. Therefore, that is how we are going to fit it, right? And then for the age, 75% of our matches have an age gap of 10 years or more between the oldest and youngest player. So I think like the main reason to do it is because that is the demographic that we have, but also because people can, like, if we went out on the court right now, well, he's injured, but Scott would kick my butt, right? He's older than me, but he's going to kick my butt, and his rating shows that, right?
But maybe not 10 out of 10 times, or maybe not by the predicted score.
Yeah,
you know,
not every time, but most likely on average, it would end up being pretty close to that, or maybe one of us is not rated correctly. So I think a lot of people say, okay, well, let's say you have like a 60-year-old man and like a 18-year-old woman that are both 4-0s. Then like isn't surely the younger girl going to beat the older guy? No, not necessarily. If they both got to their ratings are reliable, right? Then if that's not the case, then we have one of those players that are off, right? And I've already said it. We have some players that are inflated and some players that are deflated. That's part of this. We are trying to work on getting those people rated more accurately, you know? So in those scenarios, it's not always going to be the case that an older person loses or that the girl loses to a guy, right? Like we know that is not the case. We see that all the time. And we want to do some tournaments, right? Where we like, I know that there was just like a tournament for like a lot of the paddle people.
Yeah.
Did you go to that?
Viewers. No, I was injured.
Ah, bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to do some like stuff like that where we bring in some people from the space and we like have some different like age groups and like battle of the sexes and stuff like that. And I just think that like, I think people will be surprised at how some people can compete no matter what their age or gender is. You mentioned earlier this percentage, I think it was 75%, but just to verify. So the matches recorded in DUPR with age differences of 10 years or more, was that 75%? Yes, so between the oldest and the youngest player. Okay, yep. That's big. And I can see the point to some degree of, you know, needing to consider gender and age. For example, tournaments encourage people to play in their age groups, right? But I also remember you saying just a minute ago that the rec play games actually improve the accuracy of the algorithm. Is that why? Because they're actually combining disparate groups that typically don't play together, perhaps, you know, more than outside of, more than they would at tournaments, for example. Yeah, no, I think that's a good theory. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that, you know, that's one of the beauties of pickleball too, I think, and that's why a universal system applies more, I'd say, to pickleball than some other sports, because it's a big draw because, you know, grandparents and grandchildren can have fun on a court playing together and actually have good rallies. You know, there's an equalizer in pickleball, but I don't think is as prevalent in many other sports. For sure. Well, I want to speak too on like we're not trying to just make everyone play together. Like it's okay for like people to play within their own demographic, right? But we can do that in such a way where the scale still aligns. So I think one thing about this is like when people came into the sport, it was like USA Pickleball had 3-0, 3-5, 4-0, 4-5, 5-0 at every age, right? But the people who are playing like 19 plus 5-0 and 35 plus, 50 plus 5-0, those skills aren't the same, right? But that's just kind of how everyone has gotten used to it, is that the best player at every age level should be the 5-0. But what we would like for things to become and how we are working on getting everyone on one scale is in such a way that it's not bad just because you are not a 5.0 or a 4.0. It's not bad, right? We're just giving you the rating that you're showing with your level. So for example, the 50 plus or 60 plus group at a tournament, maybe the highest group is 4.0 to 4.5, right? Maybe we don't even offer that higher group, or maybe only at specific times. Because I know there are people who are older who are really stinking good at pickleball and are above a 5.0, right? But those people probably should be playing senior pro. You know what I mean? So it's like we can adjust these groups based on the demographic, what we're offering, rather than having a 4.0 mean multiple things based on the age or gender.
The little bit I've been able to glean from the complaint about the lack of age and gender seems to go back, and not to diss the tournament director, but it seems to go back to when categories are getting combined. Yes. And you get this, 4.5 women 62, and now they have to play 4.5 women 28 or 37, and they get their butts kicked. And that may be the case. And, my take on that is, well, somebody's ratings were wrong. It's like they're probably not both 4.5s. Either the younger women were a little underrated, or the older women, maybe they play in a similar group all the time. They win a lot. They never go down because they've just been winning a lot. So the new algorithm might address that maybe they're actually 4.2s or 4.3s, but by winning, they never kind of went down. So the complaint seems to have a lot to do with the weirdness around tournaments and combining of brackets.
I think it helps it, right? Like having everyone on the same scale helps if you do need to combine, right? Because right. If we believe that everyone is around a 3.5, no matter your age, then if we end up needing to combine, which I understand why players might not want to always play combined, right? But if we do end up having to do that, then most likely that's going to be much more equitable than before. Or otherwise, I guess, because we've always been universal. So,
and just because it's fun to mention Jill Braverman's name on any podcast,
absolutely.
Perhaps I'll add to the conversation. Jill and I are both approximately 5.6 or 5.7 singles players, and we did an exhibition at Boulder Pickleball a few weeks ago where we finished up with a game of singles. And I prevailed.
Let's go.
And then Jill had a great time putting out a really cool reel that says, you haven't really played pickleball until you've lost to a guy 20 years older wearing knee braces, or something, which she was sponsored by the Incrediwear knee braces, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, we bring different skills to the singles court. She's 35, 5'11", hits the crap out of her backhand. I still move pretty well, but I've got some different skills that both of our skill sets amount to approximately the same rating. We didn't submit that, by the way.
I'll be looking out for it.
Oh, okay. All right. But I think it goes to the, how do we achieve our ratings? We do that with a different set of skills and experiences and pressure management and stress and, like all those different things. And ideally, I agree that a 57-year-old, 5 whatever is, like when I lose to a 22-year-old, they're able to, access a set of skills that I don't have, and I wasn't able to use enough of my age and wisdom, to overcome their athleticism. Richard Levernace, I'm speaking to you, in this case. So I think it's really fun. I love playing against the younger peeps, and it's probably why I haven't gotten over 6.0 yet. Is I need more skills that maybe I'll never have. Mm-hmm.
But maybe you will.
I will.
And that's the other thing. Now, if you do look at it, right, of like playing these younger guys at a time where you kind of know you are at that disadvantage, now we can kind of go back to like grind out for some points. See if you can show that you're better than what we thought you were. So.
All right. Well, to tie a bow on the conversation, this has been a fantastic interview, but I'm going to bring it back to gear.
Oh, let's go.
That's my jam.
Oh, I'm excited.
All right. Food for thought here. Do power paddles screw up the DUPR algorithm because they favor more tennis-style play and more strength and athleticism than control paddles. And what we've seen is a trend from 2 years ago, every paddle would, by today's standard, would be considered a control paddle. And now we've got foam enhanced paddles, Gen 3, Gen 4 paddles. And yes, there's a limit now, but that limit's pretty high, way higher than it was 2 years ago. Are the power paddles destroying kind of the equalizing effect of the pickleball game, the cat and mouse and everything else? And is that going to be difficult for the DUPR algorithm to handle?
I mean, I think that a paddle can make you, people have different takes on this, but I think it could take you up 0.25 or 0.5, maybe not 0.5, but I do think that having a specific paddle in your hand can improve the way that you can perform. But then from the algorithm's perspective, we're just going to take that in. That's how you're performing, right? So could somebody be at a disadvantage because they are choosing to not play with one of these? Maybe, right? Some people prefer to have a control paddle, and maybe that is how their skill is most maximized. But I think that the way that DUPR sees the data is you and your paddle are one, right? How you're performing, here's one thing that I like to talk about sometimes is like everyone's truly like a kind of like a normal distribution, right? Here's your rating. Your rating is right in the middle. A lot of people like to think that their rating is their best day, okay? But we have it on your typical day. But maybe somebody who plays with a bunch of different paddles, maybe they have a wider distribution because maybe they can.
That's you, John.
Maybe they can play up here some days, but then other days it's like, wow, we're kind of talking like stealing floor here. So I think that can a paddle make somebody better? That's absolutely true. I've had questions, we've gotten questions in support of hey, I played this match that I lost in the gold medal match, that person's paddle was delaminated. Can you please remove that from DUPR? So, no, the answer is going to be no there because we're going to always kind of go back to the director. The director's there. The director's in control. The director's one submitting the matches. Do we always want directors to be fair? 100%. So do I feel bad for that player that they had to play against a delaminated paddle and that potentially made them lose the match? Yes. But that stuff with paddles, thankfully, as you know, it's all crazy and it's kind of a mess to deal with. We are happy to put that one on the directors and say, all right, you guys try to keep things as fair as possible for these players, and we'll deal with how they perform with whatever paddle they choose to play with that day.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that even at the kind of reflex level, our reflexes decline in our older years, obviously. And I look at Hayden Patrick with these full sends to people. There's no way I could get out of the way with that. And with his current paddle, the Franklin C45, it's not the most powerful paddle, but it's a power paddle. Maybe if he was using an old, Gen 1 from 2 years ago, I might have a little bit more chance of getting out of the way of it. So I think people see that and they're like, oh, the younger generation, has a better chance in today's pickleball than the older generation. So
yeah.
Great perspective on this. And Scott, do you have anything to add about that particular topic?
Well, we're in a sport and we're in an era in our sport where the ball is not a consistent factor. And there are different balls, that are played out there. So I love, and I'm sponsored by them, but I love Carbon's new True Foam Genesis series. I think it's a great paddle for a lot of different players. And it's my main paddle when I play with the Franklin or similar ball. I play in the National Pickleball League, and we play the Selkirk ball indoors. And that ball doesn't crack for a reason. So for me, the combination of those two is too much for the style of play that I tend to want to play with my partners on the Denver Iconics versus the average opponents that we play. And I go back to my Gen 1 Control Classic Series Carbon 1, not even the X. And that's the paddle for the ball, for the level of play, the indoor, and I factor all those things in. In between tournaments, then I really like having the True Foam in my hand, and I've got the new Genesis 4, which I really enjoy. And, so it's kind of cool to use the latest technology, But as I always say when I'm coaching, like we've got to factor in, who's standing next to you, who's standing across the net from you. And these days, what ball are we playing? What altitude are we at? What's the humidity? What worked in Naples in late April in that heat and humidity? And a Franklin was the most powerful paddle I owned. Weighted up a little bit heavy, but that doesn't work at altitude with the Selkirk ball indoors. And I see players, 50 plus that are a little too enamored by the power. It's intoxicating to hit a ball that pace. But their skill sets, it's probably not net the best paddle choice for them with the ball they're playing, with the partners they're playing with. Like, I think it's a unique time. And we've got a lot of different things to factor in to figure out what's the best tool for the job du jour.
That's interesting. You constantly kind of have a correction factor based on the ball and the paddle. So you go back to the original carbon one, the 10-year-old one or whatever.
Not that old. But it's Gen 1. There's no foam.
Okay.
It's not, but it's the softest, it's the best feel in my hand for that ball.
Okay.
But boy, I like the feel of a brand new True Foam Genesis with a Franklin.
Yeah.
Or the like.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, to bring it back to kind of the conversation about whether or not it affects the DUPR algorithm, I think like you said, is it a net benefit to have a more powerful paddle? I don't think so, especially in the amateur. I think at the pro level, probably, because they can control things better at the elite pro, at least. And they have
the calibration time. It's their job.
Yeah.
Like they can take that very powerful paddle and practice 4 or 5 hours a day and calibrate. And the amateur player with another job, they just don't have the time. And they just kind of fall in love with the pace they get on a put away. But boy, their mid-court game...
Yeah, how many points did
they're
you lose
not
at that
resetting very well.
Yeah, and we tend to remember how amazing those shots were when we hit them, not the 20 shots we hit that went 10 feet out over the baseline or whatnot. But I'm going to go back and correct myself. I actually, at the elite pro level, you would look at Gabe Tardio and Tyra Hurricane Black, both play with control paddles. By choice, Pickle has offered them, their sponsor has offered them power paddles. They don't want to. They love the game they have with their control paddles. So,
and they hit the ball plenty hard when they need to.
Yes, they do. They don't lack in power.
Everything.
Neither one of them. So what's that?
And get everything.
I get
at least
everything.
For Tyra.
Exactly. So. Yeah, true. Well, it's been awesome. I loved having you here, Sarah. It's been
thank you guys.
Really cool to meet you.
This is really cool.
Yeah.
I have to ask a parting question,
sure,
Sarah, since show is airing on The Breakthrough, and our mission was, for John to leverage, my coaching skills and our audience submissions of questions to help lift John to break through the 4.5 level as measured by DUPR. So, we've got the expert here.
Yeah.
Could you augment my coaching skills and offer John some tips to help him break through the 4.5 once he gets off the injured list?
Let's go. Yeah. Okay. So I think I'll go back to what I said earlier, which I think you'd agree with, is work on your game, right? Like that's the most important part. I think this as a 4.0 player already. I tell players who are trying to get from like 3.0 to 4.0 range of like the most important thing is making balls. I think it's much more important than like learning that next new shot. You already know that. But so from a skills perspective, I'll let him take that. But I think from a DUPR perspective, at least how like I'm going to handle this new algorithm is I'm just going to make sure we talked about kind of that notion of evening out, right? I'm just going to make sure that that's the case. I'm not always going to try to play up and I'm not always going to try to play down, but I'm going to make sure that I have some times where I can play at my level. I'm going to have some times where I know I can play above and below. Right. So I think that's one thing is like a lot of people are like now feel, I have to go play up. I have to go play up. But you have to, you still have to like get past that mark, right? If you play up one level, we just talked about, you have to do better. You have to do 11.6 or better, to even go up. Like that's not always going to happen. Right. So I think like playing at your level, playing often. I don't know. I think I trust you guys there for what to do.
Yeah.
But
so Plage's point, don't obsess about the algorithm.
Yeah.
That would be to my benefit for sure. But you know what? All this sounds really hard. Can't you just make me a 4.5?
I can. I'm the one who can.
All right, it's done.
And cut.
We're done.